The following event is produced by WCSN, the home of world champions.
Well, without any fuss and ado, we go straight on to the men's pairs. Our next race here in Munich on the Olympic regatta course of 1972, and on the far side, well, it was the Czech Republic in lane 1, then Canada in lane 2, and two very interesting men for Serbia, I should say Bosnia-Herzegovina, Goran Jaga and Nikola Stoic for their country in third in lane 3. Then perhaps the men who will provide the barometer in 4, that's the South Africans, Zhang and Wang of China in 5, and closest to you, another of the very experienced partnerships in men's pairs, the Skelin brothers for Croatia. So closest to you, Croatia, the Skelin brothers, then China 2 from the bottom, then South Africa 3 from the bottom, and away we go. And
crews are going off on lanes 5 and 6, which were closer to the camera. There we have Zhang and Wang from China in lane 5, and they are getting off much more quickly than they were in the earlier races, and I think this wind has turned into a decisive tailwind down there at the start, and there is no bias at all. The flags on this side of the course, that is the high lane 6, are flowing quite strongly towards the finish. On the far side of the course, lane 1, they look fairly dead, but I believe down at the start it's a straight tailwind.
Well, this is, I think, a particularly interesting race for me, for the two men who originally came from Belgrade. Goran Jaga in lane 3, who was an under-23 gold medalist in the 4 for his country last year, with Nikola Stoic, who's 31, so what, 9 years his senior, but brings the experience into the boat.
Yes, of course, Serbia-Montenegro as a competitive nation is going to be presumably have to rethink its strategy, because Montenegro is voted to go independent at the moment, but quite how they're going to deal with FISA we don't know in the future. However,
55.4%, and I gather it was the 0.4% that made the difference.
Which is a matter of out of 700,000, not all of them voting, is a relatively small margin, but not at all to detract from this pair. The race is at the moment in the hands of the world silver medalist from Gifu, and from many years before, silver and bronze medalists Ramon Di Clemente and Donovan Chech from South Africa, who should be the benchmark crew, and so they are.
Yeah, these two men who share the same birthday but just a year apart. It's Chech at 32, who's the year older. Di Clemente from Joburg, and Chech from Cape Town, and as you said, Hugh, medal after medal after medal, plenty of silver, plenty of bronze. It's the gold they haven't got.
Never quite able to overcome. There's always been a better pair. When the Pinson and Cracknell were on the scene, when Pinson and Redgrave were on the scene, when James Tompkins and Drew Ginn were on the scene, they never quite managed to be the groom. They always end up as the bride, or even the bridesmaid, further down the list.
And the wind just stiffening, and you were saying about the tailwind, and I'm just looking out, certainly as we're in our commentary position, so obviously able to see the last 500 metres, and the movement of the water is considerable.
The movement has changed, and we are now getting, at water level at any rate, a straight tailwind, and it's evident from the way the crews are spread straight across the course, with the chevron effect of the crews that qualified fastest through the semi-finals being drawn in lanes 3 and 4, and then filling lanes 2 and 5 are the next fastest, and the slowest qualifiers in lanes 1 and 6, and that chevron is observable in this race as they come down.
Quite interesting to keep an eye on the Chinese partnership here. They've got something like 10,000 rowers and scullers now in preparation for the Olympic Games. They've got one big training centre in Guangzhou, which is north of Hong Kong, up the Pearl River. And one of the main foreign endpoints, you could say, is the former Soviet rowing coach and sculling coach Igor Grinko, who is lending his expertise to bringing them on for the Olympic Games. And I noted in one of the articles in one of the FISA magazines that Mr. Liu, who is the man responsible, was saying it's not a question of hoping that we get a gold medal, we simply have to get a gold medal.
And they will. I think that Igor Grinko, he's actually a sculling coach, and he spent a long time in the United States before going to China, and you know, he has vast experience and will be helping the sculling side particularly to develop at this level. But rowing is, as a sport, one that responds well to good organization, good sporting organization, because what you need is lots of bodies in boats pulling them along, and you've got to train enough people, a large squad of people, from which you can discover your highest talents and bring them on. And most countries have 4 or 5 or 6 people of Olympic standard, and China will have at least that many.
Well, this is a really good battle going on here. Goran Yaga and Nicolas Stoic have thrown it down to De Clemente and Ketch now, and this is not even a 2-horse race now, because there are others beginning to get into this. In lane 5 here, Zhang and Wang are just in the foreground there, and on the far side you've got the Canadians, that's Malcolm Howard and Kevin Light, both from BC, British Columbia, from Victoria and Vancouver. Malcolm Howard, who was 4th in the men's pairs last year in Gifu, and Kevin Light, who's very experienced, coming out of the Canadian 8s, who were disappointingly 8th last year. And this is now really shaping up to be some battle here, Hugh.
It certainly is. It would be very interesting to see. I mean, I think, in fact, the way they're going, Goran Yaga and Nicolas Stoic are going to hold on to the lead. As they come underneath us in the commentary position, we can see that they have the best part of a length, but we have a very good race between Howard and Light of Canada, with the South Africans for 2nd place, but the Chinese, Zhang and Wang, are close enough that they could still get into bronze.
Yeah, very credible performance by the Chinese, but it is Goran Yaga and Nicolas Stoic's youth and experience to get to the line first. 39 strokes as they go across the line, ahead of the Canadians, with then the South Africans and China.
Canadians there, interestingly, not adopting the Spracklen layback that their 4s and 8s have had in recent years, and actually rowing their pair in a relatively conventional orthodox fashion. 4th place for China, very definitely, and the South Africans back in 3rd, having dominated the first half quite so in a very strong way. China 4th, Croatia, the Skellins, in 5th, and finally the Czechs in 6th.
So, congratulations to Serbia and Montenegro. Well, still plenty to come on this morning session for those of you on our FISA worldwide video streaming service. Hope you're enjoying it. Do take advantage of our email address. That's rowing@infovoice.de, or you can go onto the FISA website and use the feedback section there. We'd be happy to hear from you either way. But 2 sculling races to come up now. As you see, confirmation there, Serbia and Montenegro ahead of Canada. Good finish. And Clemente and Ketch, well, that will have given them a lot of information.
This event was produced by WCSN, the home of world champions.